Well, hi there. Are you starving out there? Do you need to be fed? Will you come on into Suzanne's, where you can feast with me on my transformation into being a universal person? This journey that I'm on, it seems to me about the only thing worth taking. And here we chat about it every week for half an hour here at Suzanne's, this delicious restaurant for food for thought, where really I invite you to just come along for the ride. I'm about half a step ahead of what I present to you each week. And I am so delighted, really, to be the conductor of this train to the only place worth going. I am sort of amazed lately, I spoke about this last week also, at how material seems to bombard me. I'm just sitting around, or I'm watching television, or I'm driving down the street, or the phone rings, and all of a sudden it's just the right thing for what I need to know next and for what I then communicate with you. So this week is a week full of little tidbits of what just happened in my door. Last week we were talking about, big subject, about how we are all this God stuff, how the journey starts with our discovery that we're not just here to do things, and we're not just here to eat up time, but we're actually here to discover what the essence of ourselves is, who we are, and where we're going, and where we've come from. That essence being spirit, source, God, whatever your favorite name for it is, but something more eternal and more substantial than what looks thick and real, these bodies and these tables and what have you. And let me read you a little paragraph that I wrote. My first message from Central. We have a little department here called Messages from Central, where we go to the heart of the matter when somebody's heart is clear and receiving. So here I was when I was clear and receiving. I carry this notebook. I encourage you all to do the same thing. It's been an incredible instrument in my discovery of who I am. I read the notebook to find out. So here's what I said this week. So here we all are in these little boxes, attempting to understand what lies beyond. What's the big picture? And how can we best relate to it? There's a pull to harmony. Harmony is when it all feels good, when it all feels like we're just in the right place. Every harmony is a place from which to take the next step. And the steps are high steps. They are ultimate satisfaction. We are in this game to figure it out. So the first thing that you kind of come across, let's say, when you discover what the game is, first thing to do is to discover what the game is, that we are here to figure ourselves out. We're here to tune into what's inside, to what's the same in all of us. First thing that happens is, seems to me, that we adopt an attitude of devotion, of intention to do more of this. And the piece of material that I want to read you first is something that arrived in my mailbox this week. Somebody saw an ad that we took out for the show, and got real turned on from somebody in Santa Cruz, got real turned on to what the show seemed to be about, and sent me his book. And the man's name is Rashad Field. Well, I know who Rashad Field is. He's a Sufi master. He's one of the heads of the Sufis. So I was real flattered that he sent me his book, and it's a beautiful book. I've read others of his books. This one is his most recent one. It's called Steps to Freedom. And I like the dedication. It says, "I dedicate this book to the necessary transformation of this planet." See, he's not afraid to say it. And his first little section, these are all just little pithy 2-page essays on what it is, what's going on. So the first one is about intention. The intention being to go from the sleepwalking where we think, we're limited to these bodies and we're just passing time, I don't know, to go from the sleepwalk where we're tossed about by everything that happens to us, where we're just the victim of circumstances, to where we come to understand that actually we're in charge of what happens to us, and that what we create as our path is the object of all of this. Creating ourselves is the object. So I'll read you a couple things. It says, "Until he awakens to serve the present moment, thought forms influence his life. When you're asleep, you're just in everybody's idea of what it's about. But we each have a job to do, which is to be of service to this world. And then the law of the real world can be brought into ordered manifestation here and now. So what Rashad Field says is that what we're doing here is serving. When we start doing what we're doing is serving. We talked about that last week. So often we go hither and thither, studying first this method and that method, doing this exercise and that exercise, this practice and that practice. Don't we all do that? I've done it. This can make us feel good for a while, but all we are doing is placating our self-righteousness. But really, this has nothing to do with the work with which we could become involved. From the beginning of time, mankind has been given free choice. Why don't you say humankind, Rashad? I think I'll write you a letter and tell you. From the beginning, humankind has been given free choice. We can get what we want in life if we put our minds to it. It is only when we place ourselves in the stream of service, by setting our intention outside of time, that we can begin on what is called the way. In other words, we're not here to serve so you can win an award or so that, so that anything particular can happen. We're outside of time with this service. We just are service. Not for something, but just because it feels good. See, I think that's the end of Rashad. Well, no, more. The methods and the practices will help us toward this end, perhaps. But no one but ourselves can make that commitment for us. If anyone says that he can, beware. See, nobody can give this to you. It is too easy to give our wills into the hands of another, and thus lose our only opportunity we have of giving ourselves and surrendering ourselves completely into the knowledge of our essential unity with God. We have to take the plunge ourselves. We have to decide that this is intention. This little chapter is on intention. You have to decide you're going to live this life and live from this place. Someone else can bring us right to the edge, but only we can drink from the fountain. Only we can make that final act of commitment. To make that commitment requires courage and integrity and a pure motive, and most of all, the passionate yearning to know God. Nothing less will suffice. Substitute self for God if God is a troublesome word, Substitute anything. Knowing who we are, That's what he's talking about.
Suzanne?
Aha, yes, the voice of guess who. Speaking of which, yes, honey.
Can I speak now?
Yes, Max.
I'd like to piggyback on the author of the book you just read a few things from. Actually, he called me about a month ago to find out how he can get in touch with you.
Yes.
And we had this kind of cryptic conversation, and he's a Sufi. I won't get into what that means, and maybe the viewers will take a trip to their dictionary to find out. However, the bottom line of my conversation with him was, are you having a good time right now? So
a safe bottom line,
right.
Max, for everyone?
Right. So we had a good time.
Good. It's true, we get lost in our practices if the practices are it, but all it is, are you having a good time right now? All right, so moving right along, I want to move to The Course in Miracles, a wonderful book. And the reason this is this week's hot, little tidbit also is because a friend of mine came to pick up the 3 books and take them away from me. I have 4,000 books I haven't read. And I said, I'll only take 2 of them, leave 1, because the teacher's manual in The Course in Miracles is I think, a particularly miraculous book, not because it's much skinnier than the rest. No. It just speaks to me. It's another direction from which to say it all. The Course in Miracles being a book that some lady who didn't have the wisdom to write wrote. She sat there with a pen and she listened, and something talked and she wrote it down. She really didn't know it. Anybody who knows this category I'm talking about is real familiar with the Course in Miracles, real popular and wonderful. It's God talk from the horse's mouth. Is that the way to say it? At any rate, this is the teacher's manual, so to speak, but don't think teacher's any highfalutin thing. Teacher's me and you, and I'll tell you who the teachers are. A teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as apart from someone else's. That's when you're outside of these little frames, making it good for yourself, and you link up your insides with somebody else's insides, and now you're a teacher of God. Pretty simple, huh? And we're all going to be teachers of God, because according to this book, we're all going to take this course. It's just a matter of time. Everyone will answer in the end, but the end can be a long, long way off. It's because of this that the plan of teachers was established. Their function is to save time. So I'm working on it. Well, once you get it, that you're living this inner life, and once you get it, that you have to be focused and intent, and once you accept your role as communicator of this, well, the thing you're headed for, obviously, is all of it. What I wrote about every place of harmony is a new place to step off from. There is a pull. It's just there, you know. If you're playing my game, you feel it as much as I do. If you've made that shift over into this inner life. And the pull is to command, to know who we are, to know where we came from. Now, all of us within us, as I said last week, are pure knowing, and then the human game came along to confuse us, and we are discovering where it is from whence we started. That's the purpose, that's the story, that's what we're here for, that's what's going on. And so how much, and at any stage of the game, it's appropriate to ask yourself the question, am I commanding? Am I not suffering, but am I ruling? Am I radiating rather than complaining? And I want to introduce this today as a seed. If it's not your seed that you can absolutely command, I mean absolutely. I mean get the universe to do exactly as you want. Of course, your intentions have to be good. You have to be in harmony with the greater good where all of us belong. But I want to introduce, if you haven't actually thought of it already, and I know you've thought of it because every place that feels good is a place where you really have delivered rather than been helpless. We can deliver it all. I'm going to talk a lot more about that today, of how we can all command. I want to make one little diversion here, though, and say something that, I don't know, keeps coming up for me, so I want to say it. Watch out for punitive realities. You know, everybody in a body has got the same dilemma. You know, there's nobody in a body that isn't not in a body. And the body is a kind of a smokescreen between yourself and the all. And so when teachers come along who punish you, who castigate you, who claim ownership of this space as if they've got it and you don't, beware. We all have some sense of it. Some of us more clearly defined than others, some more fully developed than others. But the way we're all going to learn more is to share this with one another. And I suggest we can do it lovingly. We don't have to do it punitively. You know, it's really ridiculous that somebody comes from arrogance about this most, a game where we are all really so, the same, you know. We don't belong lording it over one another. We belong sharing it with one another and helping one another. Now, I want to go now to my next department, which I call my high-octane hit of the week here on the Cosmic Fuel Pump. And I want to show you a clip of something we shot at the Whole Life Expo, which was a big New Age event a little while ago in Los Angeles, a state-of-the-art kind of event, where we had a booth and we were taping segments for this show. And I want to show you a segment that we taped of an old friend of mine who was one of the featured speakers at the event. Her name is Barbara Marks Hubbard. And she, as I speak, I'll touch on this in the interview, she has been a real influence on me. When I talk about us doing this with one another, for one another, getting there together, she has been a big help to me. And I hope I can be a big help to her. Maybe she'd say I already have been. But she was out there before I was, delivering very important messages, because the show is also about delivering all messages. We'll talk more and more as the show goes on about you have to say it all. Once you know it, you just have to say it. And Barbara knew some things. It's a little scary, you know. We're afraid to be offensive to people, right? You have to go for it. You have to live at risk because if you're living in safety, you're living in death, actually. So Barbara has been a risker for a long time. And she came along with some evolutionary theories where, as we were all concerned with some disaster occurring on the planet, she said, no, it's a sign of hope. The disaster prompts us to excel, to reach our potentials. And so I want to cut now to the little interview that I did with Barbara, who is now running for the Vice President of the United States. It's a new task she set for herself, to run for this office so that she can make some statements about what politics could be, what America could be, what we all could be, and really get us thinking in new channels. Barbara's an innovator. So take it away to the Los Angeles Expo and Barbara Marks Hubbard. first moment I heard Barbara Marx Hubbard, I was in awe. Here was someone who was saying something about how it possibly was to be a human being that described the whole enchilada. And it was so inspirational for me to become my finest. Her picture. I am living this lady's picture. And then when we finally met one another, I just knew, we had to marry one another.
Well, we are true sisters, and it's one big, great project.
Really, really.
Yes.
And we're sisters because we know that.
And there's so many of us, sisters and brothers who know it. What we've arrived at, I believe, is critical mass on planet Earth.
You think so?
Yep. I think that there are enough of us who know we are one, we are whole, we are good, we are potential. And when those people connect, it will shift the consciousness of the system, and the world will evolve naturally.
You and I have always been connectors. We've always had this passion for connection.
Right.
Right.
And you see what I'm doing in the campaign for a positive future and running for vice president.
Yes, that is what she's doing.
Is
we all know that already, right? It's old news.
To provide yet one more convergence point for all the innovators, creators, and strands. And you know what it says in evolutionary theory: when enough innovation converges, the system cooperates to self-transform.
I know, and all of those biologists like Sheldrake and who is the dissipated structures, Prigogine, they all the scientific information corroborates these things. So you and I are these gamesters who are always looking for how to play with that information to make it live, to make it, really come into its fullest, manifestation.
I feel there's a vast wave of change coming, and we can surf that and go right to the next step, or we can go splat and we're surfing that wave.
It's your confidence that's so, that makes it so. And I ride your confidence, and I know you ride mine also. That's the way we play this game. It's like you are so believable as you tell me what can happen, the exquisite things that can happen, and I fall into your belief. How can I disbelieve it? You're holding that belief. And I know I just adore you for that, for holding this absolutely radiant belief.
You know what, Suzanne? Our image of the future creates the reality. And as we believe, so we act, and as we act, so it becomes. Everything we believe is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you believe the future is going to be negative, it will be. If the future is going to be positive, if you believe it, it will be so. So what we need is a way for all of us who believe it's possible to get together and believe it at one time in history. 1984 is critical because we can see the forces of destruction are building. But so are the forces of creation.
They're inspiring me. The destructive forces are inspiring me.
They are an evolutionary driver.
They're absolutely pulling me to my excellence beyond which I ever dreamed possible for myself in this lifetime. I'm telling you, Barbara, I am there now.
I believe it.
And I know, within my own barometer, because all you have really is yourself, and then the rest is beliefs. Yeah. I know that there's more possible than any of us dream possible, just as I watch it happen within myself.
That's it. And there's so many of us that are ready, but there hasn't been a political expression. Why political? Because political represents our collective power and our collective will.
Absolutely.
And it's no longer possible to have love over here and power over here with nuclear weapons. We have to bring love of the whole into the political arena.
You're such a perfect person to do that, Barbara, because you are that really sweet, womanly, maternal,
I really am. A very straight lady.
Earth spirit, a real person. And yet entering this, heavy-duty game with a kind of authority. Just because of who you are as a being, you're such a beautiful being, that you enter into the real world, the straight world, where so many well-intended spiritualists just can't make their way, and you're credible there as well. You're an amazing, figure of amazing potential for us.
Well, what's so wonderful is the potential of the vice presidency.
Yes, I saw some of your literature that you were thinking not only of getting the office, but of transforming the office itself so that it really stood for something that I thought was quite necessary. You want to tell them?
Yes.
Isn't she wonderful? Well, I want to read you again from the Course in Miracles here, because we're going to get a little risky on the show here, because that's what it tells me to do. I'm just doing my homework, It says, you have been called by God and you have answered. Would you now sacrifice that call? Few have heard it as yet, and they can but turn to you. There is no hope in all the world that they can trust. There is no other voice in all the world that echoes God's. If you would sacrifice the truth, then stay in hell. And if they stay, you will remain with them. Well, this says we have to speak our truth. Not only do we have to get over into playing this spirit game, but when we tune into something, we can't be shy about it. well, we're so nervous about getting it wrong, and it's such a glimmer in there, but we have to, what the Course tells us is that we have to act positively and deliver these very tentative messages to the, most of our radiant abilities. I'm hanging around with somebody a little bit now who claims to be, as I've said on the show before, here to produce the second coming. He's a teacher of God for sure. And I'll just tell you what he says. He says, the only thing to do is to resist the idea of being a false prophet and go out and speak. Well, I want to tell you what we're saying to Barbara out of this spirit. Here's a letter that's going off to Barbara tomorrow, because Barbara operates out of a very deep mystical awareness. She has mystical visions of how things are, and then you get shivers when you hear them because they sound so right. But we're all scared to really act on these things. What if we're wrong, But as we encourage each other, as I say, oh yes, that's right, you get the thing that you said really is right. And this is how we kind of cooperate to create our own divinity. Dear Barbara, we have already afforded you one mystical experience. This is a conversation we had with her from Palo Alto where we reminded her of who she was. It gets tough, when politics are down and dirty and everything. She has to remember what her vision is. You know what the job is, and you've decided to take the assignment. Be sure not to fumble the ball at the 1-yard line, just because it's hard not to. We will support you in not allowing you to be less than you are. We are your cosmic kitchen cabinet to help you do your job. Here's our latest video. Then we're going to send her a videotape. Anyway, that's the essence of what I wanted to read to you here. How we can play this game together to empower each other. The person who holds the very biggest vision of all is Robert Mueller, I think, on this planet right now. He says the most outrageous things. And if he weren't sort of down to the core, believing himself, you would think he was kind of outrageously over-presumptuous. But he says things like this. The art of living is not taught enough in the schools. We must start from the premise that to be alive is something fantastic, that the purpose of life is to live. And this is a paper about his curriculum that he wants to establish, a world core curriculum that he sent to me. We're in correspondence. This is so wonderful. If you got juicy stuff, send it to me, and I'll send you my juicy stuff. This is the way we do it together. Anyway, this came this week also. So, education of the newcomers is basically the teaching of the miracle of life, the art of living and of human fulfillment within our immense knowledge of space and time. It is to make each child feel like a king or queen in the universe, an expanded being, aggrandized by the vastness of our knowledge, which now reaches far into the infinitely large and the infinitely small, and from the distant past to the future. It is to make each human being feel proud to be a member of the transformed species, whose eyesight, hearing, hands, legs, and brain have been multiplied 1,000 times by telescopes, microphones, radio, machines, means of transportation, and computers. The objective should be to make us exude a resplendent joy of living, of being witnesses to the beauty and majesty of creation and of our capacities. Knowledge, peace, happiness, goodness, and fully conscious, meaningful, responsible lives. These must be the objectives of education. Well, how dare he? Well, he dares because he knows. And if you scratch him or prick him or push him, he'll know that just as powerfully. The next thing he says will be more powerful than the last thing. Keep dropping things on the tooth. But it's people like this who hold the biggest vision, who inspire the rest of us. Hopefully I can inspire some of you, and then I invite you also, of course, to inspire me. I talked a little bit about an example about a policeman who almost gave me a ticket. And I want to say one more thing about that. The reason that I knew that I had not gone through the red light is because I had to make a turn into a driveway. And if I'd have put my brakes on when the light was red, I would have gotten hit by a car coming from the other direction. Just trust me. I was watching the light and it was orange. And when the policeman came to give me the ticket, I said, "You can't give me the ticket." And he's starting to write. And I insisted that he not give me the ticket because I knew I wasn't putting on an act. I'm a good actress, but I wasn't putting on an act. I knew. And there's a difference. And the policeman finally said to me, "I'm sure you went through that red light, but you're so sure you didn't. I'm not going to give you the ticket." Now, I'm not suggesting you can't put on an act. You have to know. But when you do know, Be your knowing, be it in all its radiance, be it in all its majesty. I was watching last night, in case you think that you don't have the power to know all these knowings, that you're just a regular old person, just like I sometimes think, what do I know? No. We all know everything. I want to share with you what I tuned into last night. And all of a sudden it hit me I was awed by something that I've seen, every day of my life or been aware of. It's in the culture. It's culturally acceptable, but it is not acceptable. And maybe if we all tune into how much we know the same thing here, we will get this sense of kinship with one another in the deepest knowings, where you don't have to be esoteric and you don't have to have gone to growth groups and you don't have to have degrees. We all know this. I was watching a year-end report and they did some segment on boxing, and 2 boxers got killed this year. And all of a sudden I realized, boxing, what is it? I've gone to see Rocky, all the Rocky movies, and I go, oh, I can't watch the blood. But how about saying, no, look what we're doing. It's barbaric. Human beings are trying to hurt one another. They're trying to kill one another. Words fail me. Again, what can we say? Don't you all know right now that if you've ever found that to be acceptable, that from this moment forth in your deepest of consciousnesses, it is unacceptable to have the sport of boxing be something we human beings do. It's like gladiators and lions. It's no better, probably worse. It's an awful thing for a species that's half awake to be doing to one another. So join me in that knowing. Let's hold that knowing. The knowing is very powerful. Anything we know together, anything you know yourself is powerful. Let's all know that. Let's see if we'll see what happens, but just know we know that together. We don't need to have done anything tremendously sophisticated to know that. It's an awful thing for human beings to do. All we have is life, and it's a gift to be grateful for, not to abuse. Well, I have 12 other things to say, and I have no time to say them all. So what am I going to quit? I think I'm going to give you a little more of the Course in Miracles here, where... No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you a quote from Patricia's son. The most powerful position you can take in the universe is complete support of everyone's power. In other words, let's do this game with one another of encouraging each other to help one another know what we know and be a powerful force on earth for absolute peace. It's about time, don't you think? Well, I think it is about time to open this here restaurant. And we're going to chew on the universe a while. We're going to get customers in to chew on all the delicious, wonderful thoughts for peace of mind and peace on earth. Have a good week. Bye.